because the Filipino nurses are so wonderful, I often hear from the facilities that after a nurse gets there, they quickly start getting promoted and they become a shift supervisor, they become an admissions nurse, or, things like that. And
How are you now? And let's talk about the one of the biggest challenges for nurses is understanding where to begin and how can U.S. healthcare guide them when it comes to the process.
okay. So let me just say that the biggest qualification that you need, you already have, which is that you're a Filipino nurse. You are already very much in demand. Filipino nurses have the highest reputation here in the United States. They're regarded as the best nurses with an unbelievable reputation of caring and the skill they bring to the nursing profession. And that's amazing. That's probably the single biggest quality that you need. So congratulations, you have that already. Unfortunately, that's not the only thing you need. There's also a lot of paperwork that's needed to deploy as a nurse to the United States. The biggest issue is, of course, the visa. And at U.S. Healthcare Career Philippines, we have an office locally in the Philippines to help you with this and to help you with the whole visa process. You need the NCLEX. That's one of the first things you're going to need. Then you're going to need an employer, which we have. And then you're going to have to start the visa process. The good news is that lately, in the past couple months, the U.S. government has started allowing more nurses in. We're still in retrogression, but less so. We're actually moving forward, and we have more nurses which are deploying, which is good news. For a while it had kind of been stuck there. The priority date hadn't been moving for a while, so that's very, very good news. But that's what you need. I think one of the first questions once you've passed the NCLEX, once you're looking for a job, is where to apply to. And maybe I can just talk for a few minutes about the different kinds of jobs that are out there and maybe
Yeah.
educate the nurses about what are some of the considerations I think they should be looking for. And by the way, if anybody has any questions, I don't know if there's a way to ask you, Chris, but I'm happy to answer. If anybody here on Zoom has questions or if anybody has any questions whatsoever, please, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. There are different kinds of jobs. There are sometimes you'll get a job and you'll be an agency nurse, which means you won't be working directly for the healthcare facility. You're going to be working for an agency that then employs you and sends you to work at the healthcare facility. And, that is eligible for a visa. There are downsides to that as well. Generally, the benefits aren't as good, and you're not going to be working for the facility. You're going to be working just for an agency. What we prefer to do is actually do direct hire, where you're hired directly by the facility. You'll be employed in the same way that a U.S.-born nurse would be employed by that facility, entitled to the same benefits that the U.S.-born nurse would be entitled to, and you'll have much more chance for promotions, for raises, for progression in your career. It's really wonderful. I love hearing about it because the Filipino nurses are so wonderful. I often hear from the facilities that after a nurse gets there, they quickly start getting promoted and they become a shift supervisor, they become an admissions nurse, or things like that. And certainly in the larger facilities, there's lots of room for a lot of movement if that's what you're interested in. So that's the model that we work with, and I think that's very good at U.S. Healthcare Career Philippines. We have a lot of information on Facebook and on our website, and I encourage everybody to please, join and find out and reach out to our team who are really. I'm sorry. Did somebody have a question? I thought I heard something. Sorry. To find out about that. Now, so that's as far as like the application process, but. Should I talk for a minute about the demand for nurses?
Yes, basically because nurses are curious about the demand of nurses in the US because these are some of the reason why they need to proceed when it comes to the process. So being in the US, being in the United States right now, can you talk about the demand of nurses, maybe
Sure.
state and when it comes to the deployment, sometimes nurses have actually a chosen state already before starting the process. How does it work?
So, yeah. So let me start off with the demand. I speak a lot to in the healthcare industry around the United States, and I'm constantly hearing that the three biggest issues that there are staffing, number one, number two is staffing, and number three is staffing. So
Mhm.
there's a tremendous demand for all sorts of healthcare workers, and specifically registered nurses, RNs, USRNs. So there's tremendous demand, and it's not only, you could say, okay, fine, you're saying that because you need nurses, you're talking to your people. That's
Mhm.
not true. I had dinner a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine, Dr. Josh. He's a doctor in a hospital in Park City, Utah. They're not a client of ours. He's just a friend of mine, and and we were discussing at the meal um, how difficult it is to staff all healthcare facilities. So I would say that there's definitely a real shortage of good nurses. A lot of after COVID, COVID demonstrated the need for adequate staffing. And now a whole bunch of states are also putting in staffing mandates. And, there was a federal law that didn't pass, but a lot of states are passing, and a lot of facilities are voluntarily saying we need to have a certain number ratio of patients to staff. So there's a tremendous need for healthcare workers, and specifically registered nurses in the United States. The way the visa works is that when you apply for a visa, you have to apply to a specific facility.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, you should know your state well in advance. And I would encourage all the nurses to really think about that decision carefully, because what state you're going to live in makes a big difference. And the states are very different from one another.
Yeah.
You have certain areas that are very big cities, densely populated, extremely expensive. So while
Mhm.
the headline salary may be higher, after you factor in things like housing and taxes and things like that, it may get, you may actually be worse off. It may be very difficult. We've had tons of nurses that were really happy going to more rural areas, I guess, kind of more equivalent to the provinces or things like that,
Yeah.
in the Philippines, where housing is a lot less expensive, transportation is easier, and it's just a different kind of life. Now, I'm not pushing anybody to any specific way. It's a very personal choice, but I
Mhm.
would definitely give that a lot of thought, because the states do feel, when you go visit them, they feel very different from one another. California feels very different than, say, Virginia.
Mhm. Well, and talking to nurses from time to time, they really wanted to be in California. They really wanted to be in California. And do you have also facilities in California?
Yes, we do. I speak to nurses all the time about California. First of
Mhm.
all, I think they think they're going to be walking down the street and bump into Brad Pitt or something. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully, maybe it'll happen, but I don't think that happens very often. California has really high housing costs and really high taxes. On the
Mhm.
other hand, there's a very large Filipino community, and the salaries tend to be higher. So, it could be a good choice for nurses depending on what their situation is, but it's definitely something you should go into with your eyes open.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that they need to consider in order for them to be
Yes.
in California. And
Yeah.
you've been in the Philippines many times already, talking to nurses, and you have deployed a lot of nurses already in all states in the U.S. Can you talk about the challenges of nurses when it comes to choosing the right institution or choosing the right employer or agency that they can partner with?
Sure. It's moving to the United States. I understand it's referred to a lot, in the Philippines as like the American dream, and it really is. And it's our job to make sure that that dream, remains a dream and a positive experience and doesn't become a nightmare. And there's no reason it should. I think first of all, give yourselves a little time. Realize you're moving half a world away. You're going to be literally on the opposite end of the world. There'll be, a 12, 13, 14, 15-hour time difference between you and your families at home.
Mhm.
And that can take a huge toll. Very often you're leaving your family. For many nurses, it's the first time they're traveling abroad. You're not only going to a new country where there's a new language, there's a new culture. The way the
Mhm.
facilities run, it's different than practicing medicine in the way you practiced it before. There are regulatory requirements, the way the facility actually runs, just the general culture. You're going to have to navigate things if you're bringing children, things like schooling. You're going to have to navigate things like taxes. You might have to get a car, housing. Everything's going to be different. Give yourself a little time to acclimate. Realize it's not gonna, like, anytime you go on a big adventure, it's probably not going to go exactly the way you think you're going to, but
Yeah.
kind of like, expect that, realize that, give yourself some grace for some things to go wrong, and I think you'll be okay. But most nurses are extremely happy. The ones
Mhm.
that are not happy that I speak to are the ones where, we get a lot of calls from nurses that deployed to the United States and are not happy where they currently are, and they want to know if they could switch to us. And a
Mhm.
lot of times they didn't really understand what they were getting into.
Mhm.
Sometimes they were asked to sign a contract and they didn't really understand what the contract said. They were just given the signature page of a contract, couldn't see the whole thing. They weren't told which facility they're going to go into. And to me, that's really strange. I can tell you that when you file a visa application and get a priority date, there is a facility listed. There
Yeah.
needs to be. You have to have a work address listed. So if your employer is not telling you where you're going, something's wrong.
Exactly.
So, ask, where am I going? Ask, am I going to be a direct hire or an agency? You know, I chances are they're, because they're hiring you in retrogression, they may not know yet, am I going to work the night shift, the day shift?
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
are some things that you might not know, but you should know which facility you're going to, what you can expect, and things like that. So, and the more you're aware of what you're getting into, I think the more you'll be ready for it. But realize it is a transition. There are going to be a lot of things that are going to be very different. But for the most part, people are extremely happy, and it can really open up a world of opportunity for you, for your family. And,
Mhm.
for me, that's one of the most rewarding parts of this whole thing, is being there with nurses and hearing about these success stories, hearing about how they bring their families over, hearing about how they're thriving, how their families are successful. It's really wonderful. I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, and I can still remember our nurses whom we help with the processing, and you deployed at nurses. We actually bring his family in the US. And right now, actually, just I think that was 2 days ago, he sent us a message, and his wife wanted to process the NCLEX as well. So it's really, really a
Oh,
fulfilling.
really? His wife is going for the NCLEX?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so happy to hear that. I'm so happy
Yeah.
to hear that. He's a great nurse. They really love him. Um, it is, with the visa, one of the nice things about the EB3 visa is that it's actually a work authorization for the spouse as well.
Mhm.
So the spouse can come along with the nurse, and then
Mhm.
the spouse has a visa as well and is allowed to work. It's a work authorization. So that's very helpful. Not all visas are eligible for that. Like, there are other visas. I don't think H-1Bs are eligible for that. Certainly
Mhm.
TN visas are not. But the EB3 visa is. So thanks for telling me that. That brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, we are very happy to actually hear that one, and we provided all the details he needs in order for her wife to also proceed with the process. Now, Sir Israel, many of the nurses are actually comparing about the direct hire and the staffing setup, because many of the nurses don't understand about it. So with
Yeah.
when it comes to this one, you providing this opportunity, direct hire opportunity for nurses, talk about the difference of this pathway that you have.
Okay, sure. An agency is kind of like a temp employer.
Mhm.
You're going to be employed by the agency. They're going to be your employer. You're not going to be working for the nursing home, care facility, or hospital. You're not an employee of the hospital. Um, which means that, employers generally care more about their employees than they do about the temp employees. They're their full-time employees. They're the ones that they want to progress. The other thing is that the facility really does not have an incentive to promote you when you're working for an agency. All that
Mhm.
means is that now they're paying more money to the agency, right? It's basically when you work for an agency, you're going to be paid, I don't know what it is, let's say $40 an hour by the agency, and the agency is going to charge the facility $60 an hour, and they're going to make some profit. And that's why they bring you over on the visa so that they can make that profit. But the facility is paying $60 an hour already. They're not interested in paying more. On
Mhm.
the other hand, when you get hired directly, you're just like any other employee. And just like any company always promotes their own employees because they want people to do well. They want people to move forward, and that can come with more responsibility, raises, just like any other company anywhere.
Yeah.
So I like it more because what it does is it aligns the interests of the facility and the employee. They both want the employee to move forward, to succeed, to get more responsibility, to progress in their career. When you start having an agency, now there's a little bit of conflict between the two. And I don't mean to disparage it too much. Like if that works for you and it's the place you want, it might be worth it, notwithstanding it. It's just for me, I found that what really makes me happy is when I hear like your stories about that we were just talking about a nurse came over, was able to bring their family, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of complexity with that, as we know, in that particular case. And now their spouse is coming over, taking over the NCLEX. I know this nurse has progressed unbelievably in their career. This nurse was able to have a few promotions already in a short amount of time. Well deserved because he's an unbelievable nurse and they really love him in the facility. He's able to take, overtime shifts when he wants to make a little bit more money. And the reason is because everyone's interests are aligned. The nurse wants to progress, the facility wants them to progress, and we want them to progress. Their family wants them to progress. We're all moving forward with a common goal. That's why I like this setup. But it's a personal choice, and everyone can make their own decision.
Wow, wow. And actually we've been checking your social media platforms and your website, and we have seen that the nurses you already deploy in the US really happy and fulfilled with that opportunity that they have.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's one of the things I really love about this job is being able to hear about these success stories afterwards because we're not only helping one person, we're helping families, we're helping
Wow.
generations and everything. So we're helping the facilities, we're helping the patients of the facilities. It's really a wonderful thing, and I speak. I'm in constant contact with all the people and everything to hear they're going because my belief also is many people feel, oh, my job is to get you to the United States. Once you're there, you're on your own, figure it out. And I don't think that's right. I mean, I understand that's a way of doing it, it's fine. Our team is in contact with the nurses long after they deploy. Very often there are issues that come up, and usually they can be rectified pretty simply. Like we had one nurse who, because of a clerical error, the wrong pay rate was put in. And that's like a very legitimate complaint. You know what I mean? Now, it was an honest mistake, but when they got there, they thought, oh no, should I say something? It'll be, and like, of course you should say something. You're promised the rate because someone made a mistake on their keyboard. You shouldn't be paid as much. Like, of course you should. But they
Yeah.
felt more comfortable telling it to our team in the Philippines. We, of course, conveyed it to the payroll people who immediately apologized. Like it was a mistake. Of course, this nurse is supposed to get what they're contractually agreed to. No one's trying to do anything. But like those kinds of things, can you imagine if they wouldn't have said something? They would have had this resentment. Also, they wouldn't have been paid as much as they would deserved. Sometimes there are issues where with colleagues, with supervisors, something happened at work. We want to hear about it. We want to be able to make sure that there's a place where people can bring up their concerns and talk about it. Because more often than not, most problems are fixable.
Yeah.
Everyone's really working together to get to the right place. And, the road is so long between the local boards, NCLEX, visa screen,
Yeah.
visa application, retrogression, medical, embassy interview, license endorsement. There are so many steps. We really want to make sure everything goes well for them. They've worked so hard.
Wow. Well, so in connection to that local board exam, the NCLEX, the business screen, the license endorsement, of course, there's a lot of newly nurses who passed the local board right now was actually planning to proceed with the NCLEX right away. So many nurses are also curious about the specific requirements when it comes to the qualification, when it comes to the eligibility and the state of deployment. Are there specific states or requirements that Filipino nurses should prepare for in order to increase their chances of deployment in the US? Let's say the work experience, things like that.
Well, Chris, this is your area of expertise. You shouldn't be asking me. You should be asking this to you. I should be asking this
I
to
mean,
you.
less the processing and the licensure when it comes to your company. Do you have any specific when it comes to the work experience aside from the requirement of the board of nursing? Because of course, them actually waiting for the retrogression to move forward. Yeah, sir, I'm gonna earn a work experience. Does this add up to my qualification? Things like that.
Right, right. That is a good question. We've had certain things, so I'll definitely talk about it. Yes, certain states do require work experience, and certain states you need to have the work experience within a certain number of years.
Mhm.
Certain states do not. So it's really state specific. State specific. Here in the United States, we have 50 states, right?
Yeah.
They're and each one gets to decide its own rules for nurses. So it's very complicated, and that's bad. The good news is that we have people like you that are able to help us sort through all of that.
Yeah.
But depending on where it is, we're able to know exactly what you qualify. There's another whole visa that we've worked on together, where if you're a Canadian citizen, let's
Mhm.
say a Filipino nurse that deployed to Canada 5 years ago and is now a Canadian citizen, they can come to the United States. We can get them in a matter of weeks. But even that, sometimes depending on where you're going, you might have been working in Canada as a nurse. You might not have been working as a nurse. It's called a TN visa, and we have a lot of experience with it.
Mhm.
And, for all Filipino Canadian nurses, you can give us a call and we'll work on that specific state for you to find out. Like I know Idaho and Ohio have very specific rules about it.
Yeah.
Texas has some rules about it. California, it's interesting. In some ways, they're easy. And then sometimes they say, oh, yeah, no, your education wasn't enough and you have to take a refresher
Yeah.
course.
Exactly.
There are some states where you can get your license even before you come to the United States, like Colorado. And then there are other ones where you need your social security number first, and you need to get that in order to get your to get your license. So it really there are 50 answers to that question. But let me know what you think. You're the expert in this.
Yeah, yeah, of course. When it comes to the processing, there's states who requires work experience, and there are states who don't require work experience. So the good thing about our partnership is that before deploying nurses in that specific state, is we did a series of assessment to really identify if that applicant is qualified in that state. Of course, it is very important to anticipate as well what will be the challenge for us to proceed with the process right away. Next question here, Mr. Israel, is all about the sponsorship program that you have. Many of the nurses here in the Philippines don't have enough money to when it comes to paying their license endorsement, when it comes to paying their business screen, or maybe the NCLEX. So you have program doing the reimbursement, right, and the sponsorship.
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
Sure, sure. And let me just say another word of caution that because I come to the Philippines a lot and I hear
Yeah.
unfortunately some really bad horror stories that some nurses have gone through with other employers, and it upsets me. It saddens me. If someone is asking you to pay an upfront fee, there's
Mhm.
something wrong. Like no one should be asking you to pay an upfront fee. No nurse should have to pay an upfront fee. I want to be perfectly clear about this for a second, because I get asked this sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
what's your fee that they ask me, what do we need to pay you to come to the United States? So everyone get your pencils out, because it's a difficult number you're going to have to remember. Zero, zero. The nurse should not be paying anything, right? All the visa costs, everything are shouldered by us. It's extremely expensive. These visa application fees and the lawyer and everything, it's really expensive. The
Mhm.
license endorsements, unfortunately, it comes up to thousands of dollars, which
Yeah.
means hundreds of thousands of pesos. And so, I'd encourage you, all the nurses, that if somebody's asking you to give them money, ask, in order to sponsor you for a visa, really ask hard. Make sure it's not a scam. I get very upset when I hear about these things. It's really, really horrible. It's taking advantage of people, and it really gets me upset. But yeah, we also understand that all these things, even things like the NCLEX,
Mhm.
the English exam, they can be expensive. We will reimburse for all of those when the nurse deploys, so that they get all that money back, and it also helps them. That way, they have some money when they first land in the United States,
Yeah.
because you're going to need some money when you get to the United States right away. We offer housing for when they come right away, because like you can't expect a nurse to land and then just figure out their housing right away. It's going to take a little time.
Yeah.
So we offer housing, and we also try to help them. The local facility will put them in touch with realtors who can help them find housing after their temporary housing runs out. So yes, we have sponsorships, we have reimbursements of all these fees, and of the things that they've paid for, like the NCLEX, like the English exam, NCLEX review,
Mhm.
the English exam review, stuff like that. That's all part of our sponsorships. And we obviously, all the visa fees, the actual fee, the lawyer fee, that is all borne by us. We will pay for that, not the nurse.
Wow, wow. And there's a lot of nurses in your pipeline right now waiting for. I actually when I actually check and communicated with your team, there are already nurses that has a current priority date, and some of other nurses are actually waiting for their priority date to become current, right?
Oh, we had an embassy interview, I think, yesterday. We had one nurse pass they got their visa yesterday. So,
Wow.
it's happening now all the time. We're very happy. We had one last week. We got one yesterday. I think we're getting another one next week. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's really nice that the priority date has really jumped in the past couple months quite a bit. So we're seeing a bunch of nurses coming through, which is wonderful. I actually, it's nice. I have to buy plane tickets for them. It's always exciting for me.
Wow, wow, really, really
Yeah.
excited to see another bunch of nurses to be in the US. And in that being said, there's a lot of nurses who actually already passed the NCLEX, but they don't have plans of proceeding because it's still retrogression, or there are nurses who are planning to take the NCLEX, but they haven't started the process.
Yeah.
And there are also nurses who are still in the process. What would be your advice and message to them that, it's still retrogression? All you need to do is to wait. There's always a right time for you, things like that.
It's a good question and a difficult one, right? Because everybody could have their own plan, and that makes sense. It's kind of
Yeah.
like asking when's the right time to get married. When you find the right one. I don't. It's difficult. The way priority dates work is that when you apply for your visa, then you get a priority date. So if you were to apply today, you'd get a priority date of March 6th, 2026.
Mhm.
And what that means is that as you come out of retrogression, that priority date will become current. So, if, like, for example, it is possible, I think it's unlikely, but it's definitely possible that we'll become totally out of retrogression, and the US government will say, okay, we're current. You could apply today and get a visa right away. That hasn't happened in years. Usually what happens is that they just keep on progressing the priority date, which means that if you apply today and get a priority date of March 6, 2023, then at some point in the future that will become current and then you'll be eligible to leave. It won't be today, it won't be tomorrow, but maybe it'll be sometime in the future. If you wait until that point, at that point you're going to be in the back of the line. Like let's say you wait 2 years, well then your
Mm,
priority date's going to be March 6, 2028, which would be
yeah.
further behind in the line. So what's the right thing to do? I mean, I don't know. It's a personal choice. Obviously, the best time to build a fence was 6 months ago. The second best time is now.
Yeah.
But like once you apply, you've applied. So it really is a bit of a personal choice.
Wow.
But
Wow.
if you are interested, if any nurses are interested, we'd love to have you. But I get why it's a choice.
Yeah, it's really good to have this kind of partnership because it's an end-to-end process. We providing the processing, the review for nurses, and after passing the NCLEX, they can have US Healthcare Career Philippines to guide them and to get that opportunity in the United States. Now, I have the last question before we proceed with the Q&A. If they do have questions in the Zoom and for nurses watching us live. There's a lot of news in the US right now when it comes to immigration policy. US is being strict right now. Maybe I will not be qualified, things like that. So what's your take about it? Because many of nurses are afraid to be in the US right now. So we told them to, avoid
Sure.
fake news, really read the information, and
Yes.
those are the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, immigration definitely is a big political issue over here in the United States, but the immigration that's a political issue is not the visa immigration that we're talking about. The issues here in the United States is more the illegal immigration. It's people that are coming in over the border illegally and then want to stay here, and the question is, should they be deported? For all the nurses that come in on visas that have green cards, there really is not an issue for them. They're here with valid work authorization. They're here with valid visas. That's really, really simple. There also was a big change to H-1B visas where you may have read, there was like a huge fee, $100,000 fee. And that affects other visas, let's say for tech workers or for physical therapists, but that does not affect nurses. Nurses are in an EB-3 visa, which does not have that fee. So there is a lot of noise right now in immigration in the United States. It happens to be it's not affecting any of the people that are on this call. And I think the reason is because of what we started the call with. There's a massive need for nurses, which is why the EB3 category, the nurse category, is progressing, has been progressing the past couple months because they kind of understand that they need more nurses. There's even been talk, it hasn't happened, and it's hard to predict whether it will happen, of making a separate category of visa just for nurses so
Wow.
that they don't get caught up with the other ones. Whether that will happen, I have no idea. That's up to the government. They can decide. But it just, I think, highlights how they recognize that they need nurses. So while you're right, there is a lot of talk about immigration, politics, and policy. It's actually conversation about a different kind of immigration, not what we're talking about. We have lawyers, we really do everything properly, make sure all the forms are correct, and do everything legally. We're not we play by the rules. We're not interested in getting anybody in trouble. We're not interested in getting ourselves in trouble. We don't break the law. We want to be very, very careful about what we do.
Wow. So hearing this, if that another immigration process will actually, proceed, it is actually a huge opportunity for Filipino nurses, knowing that you always said that the gold standard of nursing in the US are Filipino nurses, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why the biggest qualification you need, you already have, which is you're a Filipino nurse. I mean, I'm amazed how high regarded they are in the United States. Everybody loves Filipino nurses. There's a show on HBO. I was reading
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
article about it, The
Yeah.
Pit, and they have Filipino nurses over there. Like it's just become part of the conversation where now there are so
Yeah.
many, and they speak some Tagalog on the show, I'm told. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so it's really fulfilling to see Filipino nurses in international shows and acknowledging the
Yeah.
expertise. I think the name is Princess, right?
I think, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
It's Princess.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
Princess. So all other nurses, Filipino nurses, what's the name of Princess based in the US can actually relate on that.
Yeah, and maybe get a, a role on a TV show. I don't know. I think they won awards. Like it was a very popular show.
Wow, wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all this information and update, Sir Israel. It's really, really amazing to hear updates from you. Actually, it's been a while that we're talking about updates in the US, demand of nurses in the US, and of course, what US Healthcare Career Philippines can help our Filipino nurses. So we will be giving at least 5 minutes for nurses to ask questions. If you do have questions and clarifications before we proceed with other details that we are going to discuss. Do you have any other concerns, clarifications, and questions, nurses watching us live and joining us through Zoom? Do you have any? So, Mr.
Please ask
Richard,
questions. This is
yeah,
my, favorite part of when I do these things. I get to hear from you guys, and I really enjoy it.
I think I asked all the questions that they also want to ask.
Oh no, let's give a minute. Usually, sometimes it takes a minute until they're,
Yeah.
they're shy in the beginning, but once it gets started, it comes in. I really hope we get some questions because I always enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, please ask question. Of course, this is a recorded session, so actually we do have around 40 plus registration, Mr. Israel, and I think some of them are actually working or some of them actually going home. So we will just send them a copy of the recorded session so that they can always watch that one. And of course, if they have clarifications and questions, they can directly send a message to your team. We have also nurses here based in Canada. So I think they might be interested with the TN visa moving forward.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's my sister lives in Canada. It's always fun to go up there, and I'm a big hockey fan, and hockey is
Wow.
a big sport in Canada. So yeah, it's always a treat to go up. I think I read somewhere it was invented in Canada, in Montreal, and
Mhm.
at McGill University was where they invented hockey. But I know hockey is not a big sport in the Philippines, more basketball.
Yeah, it's more in basketball.
And now, where I'm from, we have a Filipino player on the team that I support, the Knicks. Jordan Clarkson is playing for the Knicks.
Yeah, I hear that one actually, and it's
Yeah,
really amazing that that guy is actually from your team. And
yeah.
last year we have an event in Manila. You meet a lot of nurses, student nurses, together with other affiliates that we have, and of course that's really a big opportunity for nurses moving forward. That there's a lot of facilities wanted Filipino nurses to be part of their team, right?
Oh yeah. They came to the Philippines. Traveled 20 hours on a plane, came all the way, and we had events. I'm sure we have stuff on our social media showing it. But we bring the executives from the facilities so that they can come meet the nurses, and they keep on telling me they want to come back.
Wow,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah, I was like, it's a really long plane ride. Like, I know we did it once, but we enjoyed it so much. We want to come back. We want to meet more nurses and everything. So it really is a very enriching opportunity for us. So thank you. Salamat.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Israel, for sharing that one. I guess there are no questions with our nurses. So if you do have clarifications and questions moving forward, you can directly send a message to the Facebook page of US Healthcare Care Philippines. I think they have around 11,000 followers now. It's growing every now and then. And of course, they have their website. You can always check their website and check a lot of testimonials of nurses who are already in the US, deployed in the United States. So before we end, Mr. Israel, do you have anything to say, any message to our nurses watching us live and joining us through Zoom, and maybe nurses who will be watching the recorded version of our talk for tonight?
Yeah, I know the road is long, and I know it's hard, and I know there are a lot of steps, but it's worth it. It's really, really worth it. Keep at it. You're really, you're really valued. There's a tremendous opportunity, a potentially life-altering opportunity waiting for you. So I would encourage you to keep at it if you can.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And I think we have one question from Miss
Excellent.
Nasya Valdez. Good evening from Qatar. Oh, I hope you are doing well there, ma'am. And I'm interested to apply, but I don't have a bedside experience. How will I go about my application?
So, but there's two things. It might not need to be first. Some states don't require any experience. But even for those states that do require experience, what they require is clinical experience, not necessarily. It doesn't need to be having worked in a care facility or a hospital. Like if you worked as a company nurse, that could also be a relevant experience that would qualify as long as the job was working as a registered nurse. So you're not disqualified just because you don't have bedside experience, even in those states that require experience. And also, some states do not require any experience.
Wow. Thank you so much.
But I hope you're doing well in Qatar. And I hope I hope you're safe and everyone you're with is safe and everything's going well for you.
Well, thank you.
Hi. Yes, good evening. Thank you for answering my question. We are okay here by God's grace.
But it's not evening for you, isn't it? Afternoon for you? Magandang hapon.
Yeah. It's still 3 p.m.
3 p.m.
2:45.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
know I was on a flight once from Qatar to Manila, and
Uh-huh.
the flight attendant, she asked me, why are you going to Manila? It was a Qatar Airways flight, and turns out she was a nurse that had just
Uh,
passed her NCLEX, and she's in our pipeline now. She got an offer in California, and yeah, it was interesting.
yeah,
So,
this is
I always think about that when I hear about Qatar.
yeah, it's a beautiful country. We are
Sure.
safe here despite all these uncertainties that we are experiencing, but the country really is great protecting all of us here.
Wonderful.
So, yeah. Actually, I'm working as infection prevention and control specialist. That's why
Oh,
I don't
wonderful.
have side experience. So, but I do have my NCLEX RN since 2023, and I would like to progress on that. So
Okay.
that's why I did this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely reach out. We've dealt with a lot of nurses that were in Qatar, Saudi, Canada.
Mhm.
Like we've been dealing a lot with nurses in Canada recently, because they're eligible for the visa right away. They're not subject to the retrogression. Definitely reach out. I hope things are going. It sounds like things are going well for you in Qatar. I'm happy to hear that. And thanks for joining. Thank you for joining this.
Thank you
And
as
thank you for
well.
asking a question. I really appreciate it. Salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that one, Miss Lucia. And of course, Sir Israel, thank you so much for answering the question. Do you have any other clarifications and questions, nurses? So for nurses who wants to know more about our collaboration, for nurses who wants to know more about the assistance of US Healthcare Career Philippines, do not hesitate to send us a message. We will be here to help you and guide you all throughout the process. All right. So I think that's all for tonight, Mr. Israel Graceman, and of course our nurses joining us through Zoom. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Israel. I know that you're busy, but you are always here to help our nurses and to give a lot of information that somehow we can look forward for them also to proceed with the process.
Thank you. Salamat. Maganda gabi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone, for our nurses joining us live. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye for now.